Welcome. It's indisputable. I'm your host, Rashad Richard. Good to be with you. We have a lot on the agenda today. Breaking down news of the day, my contributor, A.B. Burns Tucker, host of I Am Legally Hype and law student, soon to be law graduate. Should be a fascinating breakdown. Top story of the day. Cop City, city of Atlanta, continue to face criticism. Chaos emerges when people are uninformed. They want you to think that Cop City is only opposed by individuals who are violent against the government. That is not true. As a matter of fact, the first protesters of Cop City that went directly to Atlanta City Council were members of clergy, activists, advocates, millennials, and others. College students have also joined that fight. You have environmentalists that don't want it. You have good governance people who do not want it. Millennials don't want it. Community does not want it. Preachers don't want Cop City. One preacher in particular, here it is.
This Atlanta City Council. My name is Reverend Kiana Jones, and I stand here before you as a member of the Faith Coalition to Stop Cop City. And I'm looking at each one of your faces, and I really want to understand how it is that you asked people to vote for you and then ignored their voices. How it is that you feel okay with yourself lauding Abel Mabel, who had a lot to say about treating people right, who had a lot to say about the words of the Bible that many of you like to quote. Well, let me remind you of something. Be not deceived, for God is not mocked. That whatsoever a man soweth, that shall he also reap. So understand this, that the sins of the father will be visited on the children. It has happened time and again. So it may not happen to you, but what about your child? What about their children? What about their children's children's children? What will your legacy be? You so-called legacies of black misleadership sitting up here on this council. Let me tell you something. Representation is not enough when you don't represent the people who elected you. The people came out and spoke clearly. And let me go to the Bible one more again and say that we are here as clergy to cry loud and spare not. We are opening our mouths and crying with a loud voice to say that we don't want Cop City. I live in East Atlanta. I don't want Cop City. I got 5 black children. I don't want Cop City. I like breathing clean air. I don't want Cop City. I want to drink clean water. I don't want Cop City. I don't want Black Hawk helicopters landing around the corner from my house. I don't want Cop City.
Reverend Kiana Jones, a remarkable young leader inside and outside of the faith context, had those striking words for members of Atlanta City Council. There's more. Here it is.
I don't. My neighbors don't. My granny don't. She's been in her house almost 50 years, and you suckers will never get it through gentrification because we knew what to do. And Mary Norwood and the people of Buckhead, this will not be your trade-off. When are you going to stop dealing with the white supremacist infrastructure and dealing with the so-called black elites in Atlanta in your silent agreement that as long as they go along with the white establishment, they're going to keep them other N-words over there in control?
Now, some people had issues with her language. I saw back and forth commentary about how she called members of the council sucker. Some of them are. Here's how she ended the speech.
I'm saying all of it because at the end of the day, there are a lot of self-righteous people sitting in seats of so-called authority, and you are deluded to think that you have power. We have the power, and we gave you authority because we trusted you. My God. And shame on you, Dustin Hillis. I don't give a damn if you don't look at me one time. Because you know what you have done. And you know you ain't worth the dirt up under your feet. But I tell you what, In the words of my granny, because I ain't got to lean on the Bible, Mary Kay Thomas is a strong woman and taught me to fight. In the words of my granny, you may not pay what you owe, but you will reap what you sow.
Let's be very clear about the irony of this entire Cop City proposal. Nobody was checking for a Cop City development. Nobody was advocating for a Cop City development. And when I say this, I'm talking about community, members of the voting demographic of the city of Atlanta. So much so that during the previous Atlanta mayoral election that went into a runoff, this was not front and center as something that people would advocate for as if it was popular. They knew Cop City was not popular. The current mayor, Andre Dickens, inherited this development proposal and agreement. He was not the mayor that ushered it in. It was the previous mayor, Keisha Lance Bottoms. He's the mayor that oversees it today, though. Let's also highlight the nuances of what the cost has currently been. One dead person, environmentalist, questionable circumstances at least. No video evidence of what happened, even though they knew they were engaged in an operation that could cause combat. Nobody recorded it. Did not make sense. All of the drones flying on top of the Atlanta forest that this is proposed to be developed in, not one camera caught what happened. The narratives do not make sense to many, including myself. In addition to that, $90 million from the taxpayers in the city of Atlanta to develop, to build what is known as Cop City. They are literally creating a fake apartment complex in order to train cops how to run into an apartment complex, grab people out of it, or kill people if necessary. The irony is, much of the criminality side of the city of Atlanta is connected to crimes of survival, like homelessness. How about utilizing some of that bloviated budget and building a real apartment complex rather than a fake one? You see, these are the questions that activists and advocates and citizens have. Relevant questions. Opinions about the incoming Atlanta Public Safety Training Center, aka Cop City, are not unanimous despite frequent coverage of protesters opposing the site they have come to call Cop City. In fact, members of both sides of the conversation came together at Atlanta City Hall to make sure voices were heard on Monday. We are opening our mouths and crying with a loud voice to say, we don't want Cop City, said Reverend Kiana Jones, who you just saw. I live in East Atlanta. I don't want Cop City. Now, we have always contextualized this dynamic as a citywide dynamic. But let's be very clear. The infrastructure, the actual development is not going to be in the entire city. It's going to be in a neighborhood, in a community. The community will be impacted, just as Reverend Jones laid out, by what? Black Hawk helicopters flying back and forth during the training. Gunshot all day. Maybe explosion. Loudspeaker. Sirens. That disrupts a community no matter who or where you are. There's a reason this was not proposed to be built in Buckhead, Atlanta. It never would have saw the light of day. There's more. Religious leaders of the community, like Jones, showed up to the meeting with dozens of others on the opposing end. They brought petitions with 8,000 signatures asking the city to halt construction in the area of the South River area in DeKalb County and warned they are in the fight for the long run. This will not blow over, said Will Harlan, another opposer. The current plan will heighten tensions and harm communities for decades. Atlanta police officers kept watch, both inside and outside City Hall. Who's the winner here? Who's really winning? You got to think about, there's no public sentiment. There's no public outcry. It's extremely controversial. There's no real buy-in from the community. Even members of the Atlanta City Council and some members of the DeKalb County government said clearly the community was not informed enough before this became a deal. Who's winning? The politicians are losing political capital. Community is outraged. There's already one dead individual. Activists have been activated. Who's winning? The one entity nobody's talking about. Who got the damn contract? The developers, getting almost $100 million. The reason why the police were there in the first place, the operation was to clear the area for who? Not for you, not for citizens, not for green space, but for developers, corporations. There's more. Meanwhile, the Atlanta Police Chief Shearbaum, also appeared at the council meeting addressing the Atlanta City Council. He vowed to do whatever it takes to protect the site as well as citizens' right to protest peacefully. He strongly criticized agitators, most of whom traveled from outside states and even other countries to participate in a violent riot that broke out at the construction site Sunday evening. Some of them who disguised themselves as protesters were caught on camera changing into black clothing and face masks before hurling fireworks and Molotov cocktails at police, trying to harm them. That's according to video released to the public. You know, Chief, it's good you all have some video here. When are you going to release the video of the person who the police killed? When is that video coming out? And I heard that it is under investigation. What is under investigation? The person you all claimed was at the center of that ordeal, firing shots at the police, according to your commentary and your narrative. That person is killed. He's dead. What investigation? You all have told us that officers are not under investigation. The person that would have been under investigation is in the ground. Parents had to bury him. So what investigation are you talking about? These are the things. These are the things that inform the community that you do not take them seriously, nor do you believe their stance is credible. You're playing people like Boo Boo the Fool, sir, and they're hip to your game. Some speakers at the council meeting argued it wasn't too late for Atlanta to find another location for the center. However, Atlanta Mayor Andre Dickens and various DeKalb County leaders already gave the green light for construction. Sorry, everybody. It doesn't matter how many people die. Doesn't matter how many people get shot and killed. We've already signed the contract. We green lighted the deal. There's nothing we can do. It's called anticipated repudiation. You can rip the contract up right now. Pay the fine. Do the right thing by the people. My dear sister, what are your thoughts here?
Yeah, what can you say after, Reverend Jones? I think she pretty much said it all and let the sentiment be out there. But I think there's a few things that I would like to address. And one is we need to stop trying to tone police people when they are explaining to you the outrage and frustration that they feel when they have been disrespected, because we don't tone police the other side when they are coming at those who feel victimized. So I think that's my first comment on that. My other comment is if the city can afford to build a fake apartment complex in which the people who are utilizing it will not be spending money to keep it going, to maintain it, then I think we can use that for housing for the unhoused community that's out there and the community that has been actually living in this area that they're trying to use for Cop City. My other thing would be who is advocating for the Cop City, right? So if we're saying that we're doing this for citizens and it's to protect our communities, then where are the community individuals who want to have this Cop City? I think that we are getting far from what the purpose of government leaders are and what we vote these individuals in position for is to advocate on behalf of the citizens of that community and to support that community and that area. So when you are going outside outside of that realm, you're no longer doing your job, right? And I think this is part of the reason why democracy is like falling apart, because we have gone outside of that. We have gone outside of, as leaders in these positions, we work for the people. We advocate for the people. That is our job. So when you have a community telling you this is not what we want here, that should be the time when you come back to the drawing board and say, okay, let's figure something out. So to completely ignore these concerns and ignore this population, I think you're right when it goes to say, like, we don't respect you and we don't respect what you have to say. In addition to, look at the neighborhood where you are putting this cop city, right? I think we need to be less concerned about building another place for them to train and getting down to the root of what the issue with cops are. Y'all need to restructure that entire program when it comes to policing and policing in communities. Putting more cops in a community where cops are not welcome is not gonna solve any problems. It's gonna make it worse. And I think we have seen a prelude to that before the cop city even gets created.
Very well said. To the elected officials who endorse this program, it is not weak to say, I'm wrong. It is strong to admit you made a mistake. That is true strength of any leader. Some of you are saying to your families, I may have made a mistake. It's time to say it out loud.